The river was screaming, not metaphorically, not in that poetic way people describe nature when they're trying to be profound. The Blackwater River was literally screaming a high, keening wail that vibrated in my molars and made my wolf want to claw her way out of my skin just to escape the sound. I stood at the bank, barefoot and bleeding, my nightgown plastered to my thighs with sweat and someone else's spit behind me. The torches of the Iron Fang Pack cut through the dark like searching fingers. They were coming. Of course they were coming. I'd humiliated them. I'd bitten off Elder Magnus's ear when he tried to force the mating mark on my neck. I'd kicked Alpha Varix Beta in the throat when he pinned me to the altar. I'd fought, and now I was going to die for it. Yvaine, the voice carried on the wind Varric's voice. All gravel and broken glass. Cross that river and there's no coming back. The ancient territory takes what enters. It devours. I looked down at the Blackwater. They said no wolf who crossed the Blackwater ever returned. That something ancient and hungry lived in the stone valleys beyond. That a king slept there who made our alphas look like yapping pups. That the land itself was cursed. Good, I thought. Let it be cursed. Let it devour me. It can't be worse than what they're offering. The first torchlight broke through the trees. I saw Varric's massive silhouette, 7 feet of muscle and malice, his wolf's amber eyes glowing in the dark. He'd been my father's friend once. Now he looked at me like I was livestock that had damaged itself before slaughter. "Last chance, girl," he growled. "Come back, take your punishment, marry Magnus, bear his pups, live, live." As if that word meant anything in the Iron Fang Pack. As if breathing, and existing, and being their punching bag, and their scapegoat, their broken thing, counted as living. I thought of my mother. She'd lived until she didn't. Until the beatings and the blame and the burden of being Varric's favorite target finally stopped her heart. I'd been 13. They told me she'd tripped, that she'd been clumsy, that she'd deserved her fate for producing such a worthless daughter. I'd believed them for 3 years. I didn't believe them anymore. "Yvaine!" Magnus's voice now, wet and furious. He was pressing something to the side of his head, my teeth marks still fresh. "You think the king will save you? There is no king. Just bones and stories and—" I stepped into the river. The cold hit like a blade, slicing through my skin, my muscle, my marrow. The current grabbed me immediately, hungry and ancient, pulling me toward the center, where the water ran black as oil. I heard shouting behind me, Varric's roar, Magnus's scream, the pack's chaos as they realized I was actually doing it. I was actually choosing the monster over them. The river swept me under. I didn't fight it. I let the water fill my mouth, my nose, my lungs. I let it carry me into the dark. And as consciousness faded, I felt something strange. A warmth in the freezing depths. A presence older than the stones, watching me with eyes I couldn't see. "Sleep," something whispered. "Sleep, little wolf. I've got you now." And then, nothing. Chapter 1. 3 days earlier, I was still trying to be good. That's the pathetic part. That's the part that makes me want to tear my own skin off when I remember it. Even after everything, after the years of being their blame sink, their curse carrier, their "why did the hunt fail, Yvaine must have cursed it" girl, I was still trying to be good. I woke before dawn in my nest of rags in the packhouse cellar. The smell of mold and old blood greeted me like an old friend. I'd been sleeping there since my mother's death, since Varric decided that a 13-year-old orphan with no protector was the perfect place to store his rage. I dressed quickly. Tattered tunic, rope for a belt, boots with holes I'd stuffed with moss. My reflection in the rain barrel showed me what I'd become. Too thin, eyes too large, hair the color of dead wheat hanging in tangles. I looked like a ghost, felt like one too, half present, half real, waiting for the next blow to finish the job of making me nothing. Yvaine. The cellar door slammed open. Beta Kale's face appeared, all sharp angles and sharper temper. "The hunt failed last night. Alpha wants you in the circle." My stomach dropped through the floor. The circle. The blame circle. where I stood in the center while they listed every failure, every misfortune, every bad moon of the last month, and pinned it all to my chest, like medals of shame. I started. Move. He didn't grab me. He didn't need to. 3 years of conditioning had taught me that resistance only made the circle last longer, that fighting back meant they'd find someone else to hurt. Usually the younger pups who still looked at me with something like hope. I'd learned to carry the weight so they wouldn't have to. The pack house courtyard was already full when I emerged. 47 wolves in human skin, arranged in a ring around the ancient oak where Varric sat on his carved throne. The morning mist clung to their shoulders, made their breath visible, turned the whole scene into something from a nightmare. Varric watched me approach with those amber eyes that never quite looked human. He was 50, but looked 30, the wolf's healing keeping him young while his soul rotted. His mate, Luna Sarah, sat beside him, her beautiful face carefully blank. She'd never intervened, not once. Not for my mother, not for me. Some people survive by becoming furniture, and I couldn't even hate her for it. I just pitied her. Pitied us both. Kneel, Varric said. I knelt. The mud soaked through my trousers immediately, cold and intimate. The hunt failed, he announced to the circle. His voice carried that particular cadence he used for ceremonies, the one that made everything sound like law. 3 deer escaped, 2 trackers injured by boar. The full moon rises in 3 nights, and we have no meat for the feast. Silence. They were waiting. I was waiting. We all knew what came next. Yvaine. Varric said my name like he was tasting it, finding it sour. You cleaned the hunting blades yesterday. Yes, Alpha. You touched the tools of the hunt. Yes, Alpha. Your mother was a curse weaver. Everyone knew it. She hid it well, but the stench was there. Weakness attracts weakness. Misfortune clings to misfortune. He leaned forward, and I saw his wolf swimming behind his eyes, eager, hungry. What did you do to the blades, girl? Nothing. I did nothing. I polished them until my fingers bled because you said, clean blades bring clean kills. I did everything right. I always do everything right. It doesn't matter. It never matters. I don't know, Alpha. Wrong answer. I knew it was the wrong answer even as I said it. But the right answer, the one where I confessed to sabotage I didn't commit, where I gave them a villain to punish instead of a scapegoat to blame, stuck in my throat like a fishbone. Varric's expression didn't change. He just raised one hand and snapped his fingers. They came for me, not KL. He was too valuable for this. 2 gammas I didn't know well, young men eager to prove their loyalty. They hauled me up by my arms, and I didn't fight. Fighting made it worse. Fighting meant they'd hurt someone I cared about to teach me obedience. And despite everything, there were still pups in this pack who smiled when they saw me. Still an old Omega named Hesta, who slipped me extra bread when she could. I couldn't fight. Not for me. But oh, how I wanted to. 10 lashes, Varric decided. And 3 days without food. Perhaps hunger will sharpen her memory. The post was already waiting. They'd prepared it before sending KL to fetch me. This was theater. I realized suddenly. Performance. They'd decided my punishment before I even reached the circle. And the questions, the accusations, were just the script I was supposed to follow. The rope bit into my wrists as they tied me. I pressed my forehead to the wood and tried to find a place inside myself that the pain couldn't reach. My mother had taught me this, once, before she became too broken to teach anything. Go to the garden, she'd whispered. The one in your mind. Lock the gate. Don't open it until it's over. I found the garden. I locked the gate. I heard the whip whistle, and then I was somewhere else. Somewhere green and safe. While my body screamed without me. 10 lashes. I counted them in the garden, watching imaginary flowers bloom with each impact. When they cut me down, I couldn't stand. Kale dragged me back to the cellar by my hair, and I let him. The garden was fading, but I clung to its edges, refusing to fully return to a world where this was just Tuesday. 3 days, he said. dropping me on the moldy straw. And consider your attitude, scapegoat. The Alpha's patience isn't infinite. The door slammed. The lock clicked. I lay in the dark and felt blood pool in the small of my back, warm and obscene. I hate them, I thought. The words felt foreign, dangerous. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. But even as I thought it, I knew I didn't. Not really. Hate required energy, required believing you deserved better. I was too tired for hate, too broken. I just wanted it to stop. They came for me on the third night. I'd spent the time in delirium, drifting between the garden and the cellar. My back a sheet of fire. My stomach a hollow cave. Hesta had managed to slip me water once, her ancient hands shaking as she pressed the ladle to my lips. She didn't speak, couldn't risk it. But her eyes said sorry, and that was almost worse than the silence. When the door opened, I thought it was her again. Or death. I was ready for either. Instead, torchlight flooded the cellar, and I saw Magnus, Elder Magnus, 70 years old if he was a day. His wolf so weak he hadn't shifted in a decade, but his human form was still strong. Broad shoulders, thick arms, a belly that spoke of meals he'd eaten while pups went hungry. He wore his ceremonial robes, the ones with the silver thread that caught the light like spider webs, and he was smiling. "Up," he said. "Now. The Alpha commands your presence." I tried to stand. My legs betrayed me, and I collapsed. Magnus didn't help. He just watched, that smile never wavering, as I crawled to the wall and used it to pull myself upright. "What?" My voice was rust. "What does he want?" "You'll see." The pack house was transformed. Torches everywhere. Flowers, actual flowers, wasted in decoration, hung from the rafters. The smell of roasting meat made my knees buckle. They'd fed since the failed hunt. Of course they had. The deprivation was only for me. Varric waited in the center of the hall, dressed in his full regalia. Luna Sarah stood beside him, and for the first time, she wouldn't meet my eyes. That should have warned me. That terrified me more than anything else. "Yvaine," Varric said, and his voice was almost kind. The way a predator's voice is kind when it lulls prey to sleep. "Your punishment is complete. You've been difficult. But we are merciful. We see your potential, even when you don't." I said nothing. I knew this tone. This was the tone before the worst blows, the deepest cuts. "Elder Magnus has agreed to take you as mate." The world stopped. No, 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 no. Your Curseweaver blood needs strong lineage to dilute it," Varric continued, as if discussing livestock breeding. "Magnus's line is ancient, pure. He will break you of your mother's taint, give you pups to occupy your time, and in return, you will serve him as you have served this pack. With gratitude, with humility." Magnus stepped forward. His hand, thick, calloused, stained with nicotine and old blood, reached for my face. I flinched back. His smile flickered. "The ceremony is tonight," Varric said. "The mark will be placed, you will be claimed, and your chaos will finally have purpose." I looked at Sarah. "Help me," I begged with my eyes. "Please. You were young once. You were afraid once. Help me." She turned away. Something broke in my chest. Not my heart. I think that had broken years ago. This was deeper. This was the last thread connecting me to the idea that someone, anyone, in this pack might see me. Might care. "Come," Magnus said, and his hand closed on my arm. "The altar waits." They'd built it in the sacred grove, the place where matings were blessed by the moon. I walked there in a daze, Magnus's fingers digging bruises into my skin, the pack following in silent procession. Someone was singing, the old mating hymn, the one about submission and joy. I wanted to scream. My throat wouldn't work. The altar was stone, ancient, carved with spirals that seemed to move in the torchlight. They'd dressed it with those wasted flowers, made it pretty, made it romantic. "Kneel," Magnus commanded. I knelt. Automatic, broken. He stood behind me, and I felt his breath on my neck. Hot, wet, smelling of decay and old power. The pack formed a circle, watching, waiting. This was entertainment for them, a show. The broken scapegoat finally finding her purpose. I claim this female, Magnus intoned. I take her chaos into my order, her curse into my cleansing. She will bear my name, my young, my El. His hand touched my neck, where the mating mark would go, where the bite would seal me to him forever. Until one of us died, and something in me, something small, something I'd thought was dead, screamed. No, not like this, not with him, not ever. I moved without thought. My head snapped back, catching his nose. I heard the crack, the howl. I spun, still kneeling, and sank my teeth into the hand that reached for me. Blood flooded my mouth. Hot, copper. Victory. Magnus shrieked. The pack surged forward. I scrambled up, slipping on flowers, and ran. I didn't know where I was going. Didn't care. The forest swallowed me, and I ran like I'd never run before. Like the wind. Like the hunted thing I was. Behind me, Varric's roar shook the trees. Bring her back! Bring her back or kill her! They chased me. Of course they did. Wolves in human skin, shifting as they ran, becoming the monsters they truly were. I could hear them, paws on leaves, breath on air. The hunting song that meant prey. I ran for hours, days, forever. My back screamed, my lungs burned, but I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The alternative was Magnus's bed. Magnus's mark. Magnus's ownership. The river found me before I found it. I burst through the trees. And there it was. The Blackwater. Black as sin. Screaming that ancient song. The boundary. The end. The place no wolf returned from. Behind me. The torches. The voices. Varric's promise that crossing meant death. I looked at the water. I thought of Magnus's breath on my neck, of Sarah's turned back, of my mother's clumsiness. Death, then, I decided. But my death, my choice. I stepped in, and the river took me. Chapter 2. Consciousness returned like a tide, slow and reluctant. I was warm. That was the first thing I noticed. After the river's cold, after the cellar's damp, after years of never quite being comfortable warmth, felt like a foreign language. I couldn't parse it. The second thing, softness. I lay on something that gave beneath my weight, cradled rather than supported. Fabric against my skin smooth, impossibly smooth. Nothing like the rough spun I'd worn my whole life. The third thing, scent. Not mold, not blood, not the pack's stink of fear and aggression. Something older, stone and pine, and something musky, something that made my wolf stir in a way she'd never stirred before. Not fear, not exactly. Recognition, maybe, or the promise of it. I opened my eyes. Gold, everywhere gold. Not gaudy, not bright ancient gold. The color of sunset on autumn leaves, of honey in shadow, of eyes that had seen centuries pass. It covered the walls in leaf patterns, in tree patterns, in spirals that made my head spin if I looked too long. I was in a bed, not a nest, not a pile of straw, an actual carved wooden frame with curtains and pillows and blankets that weighed nothing and warmed everything. Silk sheets. I'd heard of silk, never touched it. You're awake. The voice came from the corner. I flinched, automatic, trained, and tried to sit up. My back screamed. I gasped, falling back into the pillows. Don't! The voice again, closer now. Your wounds are healing, but slowly. The river. It doesn't take kindly to intruders. You were nearly gone when I found you. I turned my head and saw him. He filled the doorway. No, he was the doorway. Nearly. Shoulders spanning the frame. Head brushing the lintel. 7 feet tall at least. Maybe more. Dressed in simple black tunic, Trousers, boots, but nothing about him was simple. His hair was the color of ravens, long and loose, falling past shoulders that looked carved from mountain stone. His face gods, his face, harsh angles, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and his eyes, gold, pure gold, no white, no pupil visible from here, just molten amber that seemed to glow with their own light. He terrified me, instantly, completely. This was power. This was the thing Varric pretended to be. This was what waited in the ancient territory. No wonder no one returned. Who would want to? Facing this. Don't be afraid. He said it softly, as if he could smell my fear, which he probably could, as if he cared, which he probably didn't. You're safe here. No one crosses the Blackwater without my knowledge. No one hunts in my territory without my permission. I found my voice. It came out as a whisper. Who? FENRIR. He stepped into the room, and I saw how carefully he moved, deliberately, as if afraid of breaking something. King of the Lycans, Lord of the ancient territory, and currently, your host, King. The stories were true. The sleeping king, the ancient power, the monster that made other monsters afraid. I should have been dead. Why wasn't I dead? You tried to die, he said. And there was something strange in his voice. Not accusation, understanding, maybe, or memory. In the river, I felt it. The surrender, the welcome of oblivion. He reached the bed, stood beside it, and I saw his hands massive, scarred, capable of crushing skulls. They hung at his sides, open, empty. I couldn't let you. I'm sorry. For the intrusion. Sorry. The king of the ancient territory was apologizing for saving my life. I don't. I swallowed. My throat was raw, probably from river water and screaming. I don't understand. Neither do I, he smiled. And it transformed his face from terrifying to merely devastating. Not entirely, but we have time. You're here, you're safe, and you're going to heal. He reached out, slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. His fingers warm, rough, gentle in a way that made my chest ache. Brushed hair from my forehead. The touch lingered, his eyes widened, just slightly, and I saw his nostrils flare. Sleep, he said, and his voice had gone deeper, rougher. I'll bring food when you wake. He left. I stared at the golden ceiling and tried to remember how to breathe. The healing took a week. I spent it in a haze of pain and confusion, drifting in and out of consciousness, aware of Fenrir's presence more often than not. He was there, always there, in the corner, by the window, sitting in a chair that looked too small for him, watching, waiting. He fed me. The first time, I was too weak to lift my head, and he slid his arm beneath my shoulders, lifted me like I weighed nothing, and held the cup to my lips. Broth, rich, complex, tasting of herbs I didn't know, and meat from animals I'd never seen. I drank greedily, messily, and he didn't comment on the spillage, just wiped my chin with a cloth that felt like clouds. Slowly, he murmured, your stomach isn't used to real food. Real food. As if what I'd eaten before was pretend. As if my whole life had been a shadow of something actual. The second day, he brought me clothes. Not the rough spun I was used to. Not even the pack's better wool. Silk. Linen so fine, it flowed like water. A gown the color of moss and stone. Simple, but exquisite. That made me feel like a different person when he helped me into it. I can't. I touched the fabric, disbelieving. This is for. I'm not. You're a guest in my home. He knelt to adjust the hem, and I froze. He was kneeling for me. This king, this mountain of power and ancient grace. Guests wear what comforts them. If this doesn't, I'll find something else. If you prefer your own clothes. He trailed off. We both looked at the pile of rags in the corner. What remained of my nightgown, torn and stained. and smelling of the Iron Fang Pack. "I'll wear this," I whispered. "Thank you." He looked up at me, still kneeling, and his golden eyes held something I couldn't name. "You don't need to thank me, Yvaine." He knew my name. I hadn't told him. "How?" "You talked, in your sleep." He stood, smooth and powerful, and moved to the window. "You talked a lot. Names, places. Please don't. And I didn't mean to. And..." He paused. His shoulders tightened. Other things. The beatings. The circle. The cellar. Magnus. I felt heat rise to my face. Shame. Hot and familiar. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to burden you with..." "You didn't burden me." He turned, and his eyes were different now, not glowing, but burning. "You survived. Do you understand how extraordinary that is? What they did to you. What they tried to do. And you survived. You fought. You ran. You chose the river over surrender." He crossed the room in 2 strides, stopped at the bed's edge, and I saw his hands shaking. "You are the strongest person I've ever met, and I am very, very old." I stared at him. No one had ever called me strong. Difficult, yes. Cursed, broken, worthless. But strong? "I don't feel strong," I admitted. "That's because strength isn't a feeling." He sat on the edge of the bed, carefully, keeping distance. Always keeping distance. It's a choice, made again and again. You chose to live, Yvaine. Even when you tried to die in the river, some part of you chose to swim. To fight the current, to reach the bank. He reached out, stopped himself, pulled back. That part. I want to know it better. I want to help it grow. I didn't know what to say. This was beyond my experience. Kindness without price. Gentleness without trap. I waited for the other shoe to drop, for the demand, the claim. It didn't come. Instead, Fenrir stood. "Rest. I'll return with dinner." He paused at the door. "And Yvaine? The silk suits you. You look like what you are." "What am I?" He smiled. And it was sad, and fierce, and tender, all at once. A queen. You just don't know it yet. Chapter 3. By the 5th day, I could walk. Fenrir's palace Stonehaven. He called it unfolded around me like a dream. Hallways of golden stone that seemed to shift in the light. Windows that showed forests older than memory. Gardens where flowers grew in colors I didn't have names for. And silence. Beautiful silence. No howling. No accusations. No constant, grinding tension of waiting for the next blow. I found him in the library. A room bigger than the pack house, filled with books and scrolls and tablets that looked carved from obsidian. He sat at a table that could have seated 20, surrounded by manuscripts, reading something by the light of a single candle. He looked up when I entered, and his expression softening. That was the only word, as if my presence pleased him in a way he didn't expect and couldn't hide. "You're walking." "I'm trying." I leaned against the doorframe, still weak, still uncertain. "Your home is big. It was built for many." He set down his book, rose, crossed to me. Without asking, he slid an arm around my waist support, not constraint, and guided me to a chair. For a court, a family. But that was long ago. What happened to them? The question hung in the air. I regretted it immediately, too personal, too probing. I'd learned never to ask questions. Questions led to punishment. They left, he said it simply, without pain I could detect. Or I drove them away. It's hard to remember, now. The years blur. He sat across from me, and the candlelight turned his skin to bronze. "I'm not easy to be around, Yvaine. The lichen nature is older than the wolf, wilder, less civilized. I built Stonehaven to contain myself, to protect others from what I am. I thought of Varric, of his civilization, the circles, the blame, the systematic breaking of the weak. Your wildness seems kinder than their civilization." He went still. So still I thought I'd offended him. broken some rule I didn't know. Then he laughed. A real laugh, surprised and rough and young. No one has ever said that to me. Should I not have? Say anything. He leaned forward, gold eyes catching the light. Say everything. I want to hear your thoughts, Yvaine. All of them. Even the ones that tell you to be silent. Especially those. I didn't know how. The silence had been beaten into me, polished by fear, reinforced by years of learning that my words were weapons others would use against me. But looking at him, this ancient king who knelt to adjust my hem, who apologized for saving my life, who wanted my thoughts, I wanted to try. They called me scapegoat, I said. The words came slowly, carefully, like learning to walk again. In the pack, everything that went wrong was my fault. Bad hunt? Yvaine's curse. Lost pup? Yvaine's negligence. Someone's mate miscarries? Yvaine's presence poisoned the womb. I watched his hands, saw them tighten on the table's edge. I knew it wasn't true. I know that. But when you hear something enough, it becomes true anyway, he finished. Reality is consensus, little wolf. When enough people agree on a lie, it gains weight, mass. It crushes. Yes, I looked up at him. How did you know? Because I've been the monster in their stories. His voice was gentle, but his eyes were ancient. The king of the ancient territory, the thing that eats wolves who cross the border. They've told tales of me for centuries, how I slaughter without reason, how I hoard treasure and maidens, how I cannot be killed because I was never alive. He smiled, sharp and sad. Some of it's true. I have killed. I have hoarded. I am very difficult to kill. But the reasons matter, don't they? They always matter. They do, I agreed. And then, because he had asked for my thoughts, I don't think you're a monster. He went still again. This time, the stillness was different. Vulnerable, almost. You don't know what I am. What I become. I know you haven't hurt me. I know you've been gentle when you didn't have to. I know. I hesitated, but pushed forward. I know you want something from me. Everyone always wants something. But you haven't named your price. You haven't even hinted at it. That makes you different from every person I've ever known. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he stood, crossed to the window, stared out at his ancient forest. I want everything, he said to the glass. That's the truth you asked for. I want your trust, your stories, your laughter, your anger. When you're ready to feel it, I want to see you strong and safe and sure, the way you were always meant to be. He turned, and his eyes were burning again. That gold that seemed to come from within. I want you to choose to stay, not because you have nowhere else to go, but because, here, with me, you finally have somewhere you want to be. My heart was pounding. This was too much, too fast, too something. I can't promise that, I whispered. I don't know how to want things. They taught me not to. I know. He came back to me, knelt again, knelt, this king, this power, and took my hand in both of his. His touch was warm, careful, reverent. I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for time, for the chance to show you what safety feels like, what care feels like, without debt or demand. He pressed his forehead to the back of my hand, a gesture of submission that made my breath catch. Let me heal you, Yvaine. Let me be the place where you learn to want again. I looked down at his bowed head, at the raven hair I suddenly wanted to touch, at the massive shoulders that had carried me from the river, that had held my cup, that had done nothing but protect since I arrived. And I felt something crack in my chest. Not my heart breaking, my heart opening. A door in the garden, unlocking after too long. Yes, I breathed. Show me. The days that followed were a revelation. FENRIR was patient, in a way I didn't know patience could exist. He never rushed me, never pushed, never appeared unexpectedly, or touched without invitation. He built a world around me of small, consistent kindnesses that slowly taught me to relax. He brought me food himself, never sent servants, though I learned Stonehaven had them. Silent figures in gray who moved through the shadows, He sat with me while I ate, talked about his books, his forest, the history of the lichens that predated the wolf packs by millennia. The lichens were first, he explained one evening, as we sat in the garden I'd found on the eastern terrace, before the moon's blessing fractured into packs, before the shift became genetic rather than sacred. We were the bridge, human and wolf, and something else, something older. Are there others? I asked. Other lichens? Scattered, sleeping, hiding. He plucked a flower, silver petals, gold center. No name I knew, and tucked it behind my ear. His fingers lingered, brushing my jaw. The world grew too small for us, too loud. I stayed because this territory demands a guardian. The river, the forest, the magic that pools here. Without a lichen to anchor it, it would spill. Poison everything for miles. So you're a prisoner too. His hand paused. I hadn't thought of it that way. Being necessary isn't the same as being free. I met his eyes. I was necessary to the Iron Fang Pack, their scapegoat, their warning, their reason for unity. Without someone to blame, they would have turned on each other. I reached up, tentative, and touched the flower he'd given me. But necessary still hurts, still takes, still costs. He caught my hand, held it. His thumb traced my palm, my wrist, the pulse that hammered there. What would you have me do? He asked. If you were free to choose. For me? The question was too large. I didn't have answers for myself, let alone for an ancient king. Rest, I said finally. You've been awake a long time. Maybe you could sleep too. Not the sleep of duty, the sleep of trust. His eyes widened, his grip tightened, just slightly. Trust, he repeated, as if tasting the word. You would trust me to rest, to be vulnerable, knowing what I am? I trust you now, I said, and realized it was true. You're the only person I trust. He stared at me. The gold in his eyes seemed to swirl, to move, and I felt something shift in the air between us. A pressure, a pull, like gravity, like tide, like the river that had brought me here. Yvaine. My name in his mouth was a prayer. Do you feel that? I did, warmth spreading from my chest, from the place where his hand held mine. A rightness, a recognition. What is it? The bond, he said, and his voice was rough. The fated mate bond, ancient, unbreakable. I felt it when I pulled you from the river, but I thought, I hoped I was wrong, that you were too hurt, too soon, too everything for this to be real. Fear spiked through me. Mate, bond, claimed. I'd run from Magnus to escape this, to escape being owned, and now, no. Fenrir released my hand, stood, stepped back. 3 deliberate movements that put distance between us. No, little wolf, don't look like that. Don't be afraid. I can't. I was shaking. I can't be mated again. I can't be owned. I can't be marked. I can't. You won't be. He kept his distance, hands raised, open, harmless. I swear to you. I swear. The bond exists. It wants to snap closed, to seal us together, to make us one in ways you can't imagine, and I can't explain. But I will not force it. I will never force it. His voice broke, just slightly. I would rather cut out my own heart than make you feel trapped again. I stared at him. The bond pulled at me, urging me toward him, urging me to close the distance he'd created. But his words, his promise. You would wait? I asked. Even knowing we could be. What? Stronger? Safer? Together? Forever, if necessary. He smiled, and it was fierce and tender and absolutely true. I have waited centuries, Yvaine. I can wait more. You are worth any weight, any want, any weight of loneliness. The bond screamed between us, demanding union. He ignored it. For me, for my choice. And in that moment, I loved him. I didn't say it. Wasn't ready to say it. to name it, to trust it. But I felt it bloom in my chest, alongside the flower he'd given me, alongside the warmth of safety, alongside the first true want I'd felt in years. "Thank you," I whispered. He bowed his head. "Always." Chapter 4. The next 2 weeks were a dream. I grew stronger. My wounds healed physical ones first, the lashes on my back fading to silver scars that FENRIR traced with his eyes, but never touched without permission. Then, the other wounds, the deeper ones, the ones that made me flinch at loud noises and wake gasping from dreams of the circle. He helped with those too, not by demanding I talk, though he listened when I did, but by showing me what safety looked like. He slept outside my door, in wolf form, a massive black shadow that guarded my rest. He growled at servants who entered too loudly, their eyes widening at this king who'd never shown temper before. He brought me books, and sat with me in silence when I couldn't read them, when the words blurred with memory. And he taught me to want. Small things first. A particular fruit from the southern orchards, a spot by the western window where the afternoon light was warmest, the sound of his voice reading poetry in languages dead 1,000 years. Then larger things, the desire to walk without fear, to speak without measuring every word, to reach out and touch him, his hand, his shoulder, the raven hair that fell across his face when he bent to his books. I touched him first. On the 14th day, we were in the library, and he'd fallen asleep in his chair. Exhausted from another night guarding my door, I stood over him, watching the rise and fall of his chest, the peacefulness of his face in repose. Without thinking, I reached out and brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. He woke instantly, like in reflexes, but didn't move, just looked up at me with those burning gold eyes, waiting. "I wanted to," I explained, embarrassed. "I wanted to touch you. Is that allowed?" "Yvaine." He caught my hand, pressed it to his cheek. His skin was warm, slightly rough with stubble. "Real. Here. You are always allowed. I am always yours to touch, to take, to want. When you're ready to want me." I let my fingers explore his jaw, the pulse in his throat, the shell of his ear. He shivered, controlled, patient, letting me learn him at my pace. I said slowly, "I think I'm ready to want more. Not the bond, not yet, but you, this, whatever we are, when we're together." He turned his head, pressed a kiss to my palm. "Then we are more than I ever hoped, more than I ever deserved." "You deserve everything," I said, and meant it. "You've given me everything." "Not everything." He stood, slowly, giving me time to step back. I didn't. "There's one thing more, something I should have shown you sooner." But I was afraid. "Of what?" "Of becoming the monster in your story." He took my hand, led me toward the terrace doors. "Come, I'll show you what I really am, what I become, when the wildness wins." The clearing was deep in the forest, marked by stones older than Stonehaven itself. FENRIR released my hand at the edge, stepped into the center, and began to undress. I should have looked away. I didn't. He was beautiful muscles carved by centuries of survival, scars mapping stories I wanted to learn, skin that seemed to absorb moonlight even in daylight. But more than beauty, there was power, coiled, waiting. "This is the lichen form," he said. "Not wolf, not human, the bridge, the ancient thing." He met my eyes. "Don't be afraid." He shifted. I'd seen wolves shift before. Varric, Kale, the others, it was quick, fluid, almost graceful. This was none of those things. This was expansion. Growth that should have been impossible. Bone stretching and reforming, muscle multiplying, fur coarse, black, tipped with gold erupting from skin. He rose on hind legs that bent wrong, that bent right. For what he was becoming, his face elongated, jaw filling with teeth longer than my fingers. Claws scraped stone, scoring grooves that sparked, and size. Gods, the size. 3 times the wolf I'd thought massive. 4 times a creature that could crush a horse in one hand, that could look through a second-story window without stretching. The Lichen King threw back his head and howled. The sound wasn't a wolf's howl. It was deeper, older, a frequency that vibrated in my teeth, my bones, my soul. Birds erupted from trees for miles. Small animals fled. The stones in the clearing seemed to hum in response. And I wasn't afraid. I should have been. Every instinct screamed predator, monster, run. But looking at him, this ancient, impossible thing, I saw FENRIR. The gentleness in the massive paw, carefully placed. The patience in the burning gold eyes, still recognizable. Still him. I stepped into the clearing. The lichen went still. Even in this form, I could read surprise, caution, fear his fear, that he would hurt me, that I would run, that this would be the moment I saw him as the world did. "You're beautiful," I said. My voice was steady. "Terrible and beautiful. And you're still you." I reached out. The lichen lowered his head, a massive jaw opening to show those sword teeth, and licked my hand. The tongue was rough, warm, larger than my face. It was gross, objectively, wet, and animal, and too much, but it was also FENRIR, greeting me the way his wolf might, offering trust in this form as he had in every other. I laughed. The sound surprised us both. The lichen chuffed a sound like a steam engine, like affection, and carefully, so carefully, nudged me with his nose. I stumbled, caught myself against his leg. Felt the fur soft as the silk he'd given me, warm as his hands. "Show me," I said. "Show me what you can do, what you are. I want to know all of you." He did. He moved through the clearing with a grace that belied his size, showing me speed that blurred the eye, strength that shattered a fallen log with a casual swipe, agility that let him leap to a treetop and land without sound. And always, his attention returned to me, checking, making sure I was safe, that I was still here, when he shifted back faster. Collapsing inward rather than expanding it, was FENRIR who caught me when I swayed. FENRIR who wrapped me in his arms. FENRIR who whispered, "Thank you," into my hair. Like I'd given him something precious. "You showed me," I said. "You trusted me with your monster. You're the only one who doesn't see a monster." He pulled back, cupped my face, and his eyes were wet. "The only one who ever hasn't. Then they're fools," I said. "And I'm lucky." We stood there, in the ancient clearing, with the bond humming between us, and the future uncertain, and the past, finally starting to loosen its grip. I thought we had time. I thought we had safety. I thought the river had carried me beyond reach of the Iron Fang Pack, beyond Varric's cruelty, beyond the circle, and the cellar, and Magnus's wet breath on my neck. I was wrong. Chapter 5. They found me on the 17th day. I was in the garden, reading, actually reading, the words staying still on the page, my concentration finally my own. FENRIR was nearby, close enough to hear if I called, far enough to give me space. He'd been doing that more, trusting my strength, letting me explore Stonehaven alone. The first warning was the birds. They went silent, all at once. A blanket of silence that dropped over the garden like a shroud. The second warning was the smell. Wet fur, cheap leather, the particular musk of the Iron Fang Pack, which I'd thought I'd escaped, which I'd prayed I'd escaped. Well, Varric's voice. "The scapegoat lives." I stood slowly, turned. They were at the garden's edge, 10 of them, Varric in the lead. They'd crossed the river, somehow, impossibly. They'd found a way across, or through, or around. And they were here, in my sanctuary, in my safety. "How?" I started. "Old magic." Varric sneered. He looked terrible, thin, desperate. His eyes wild in a way that spoke of risks taken, of bargains made. Blood magic. The river lets through those who pay the price. He gestured, and I saw the bandages on his pack's arms, the pallor of their faces. 3 of ours didn't survive the crossing, but for you, Yvaine, worth it. You're property of the Iron Fang Pack, stolen property, and we've come to collect. FENRIR's roar shook the garden. He came from the terrace, moving too fast to track, and planted himself between me and them. Human form, but barely. His eyes were fully lichen gold, his hands clawed, his presence filling the space like a physical weight. "You cross my territory," he said, and his voice was the howl-made words. "You threaten my guest. You speak of property in my hearing." He smiled, and it was all teeth. "You have made your last mistake, little wolves." Varric paled. I saw it, the recognition, the stories catching up to reality. But he was desperate, cornered, too far in to retreat. "We claim Pack right," he shouted. "She is ours, born to our territory, sworn to our service, marked for our elder. You have no jurisdiction, King. The ancient territories don't interfere in Pack business." She crossed the river. FENRIR's voice was soft, deadly. "She entered my domain. She accepted my protection." He reached back, found my hand, squeezed once. "She is mine, and I do not share. The Pack is nothing." FENRIR stepped forward, and Varric stepped back. Less than nothing. A collection of frightened animals pretending at power. "You," he pointed at Varric, "you break the weak to feel strong. You blame the innocent for your failures. You tried to give a child to a monster to cover your own cowardice." His form flickered, lichen pressing against human skin. "I know you, Alpha of the Iron Fang. I know your stink, and I judge you." "Judge?" Kale laughed, nervous. "You can't judge us. You're not our king." "No." FENRIR's smile widened. "I'm something older, something that predates your packs, your laws, your civilization." He looked back at me. "Yvaine, what would you have me do with them?" I stared at him, at the pack that had broken me, that was trying to reclaim me, that stood in my garden with blood payment still wet on their arms. "They came for me," I said. My voice was steady, stronger than I felt. "They want me back. They want to punish me for escaping, for fighting, for living." "Yes." FENRIR's eyes were gentle, even as his body promised violence. "And I can stop them. I can end them. Or," he paused, "or we can show them what you've become, what we are, together." He offered me his hand. I took it. The bond, quiescent since the clearing, roared to life. Power flowed between us, his ancient strength and my battered resilience, merging into something greater than either. I felt the Lichen King's power. I felt my own wolf small, scarred, but present rise to meet it. "Trial," I said. The word came from somewhere deep, somewhere new. "They want to claim me by their law. Let's use it. Let's show them their law means nothing against truth." FENRIR's eyes blazed approval. "As my mate commands." The word hung in the air. Mate, not forced, not claimed, but chosen, acknowledged. The bond sang between us. Not sealed. Not yet. But recognized. Honored. Varric's face twisted. "She's not your mate. She can't be. She's nothing." "She is everything." FENRIR's voice carried the weight of centuries. "And you will answer for your crimes against her. In my court. By my law. Tonight." The throne room of Stonehaven had never been used. FENRIR told me as we prepared. Not in his memory. He'd built it for a court that never came. For subjects who feared him too much to approach. Tonight. It would serve. He dressed me himself. Not the moss-green gown, but something else white and gold. Silk and starlight, with a circlet that sat heavy on my brow. "My consort's regalia," he explained, fastening clasps with hands that shook slightly. "If you'll wear it, I'll wear it," I said. And then, "FENRIR, The bond. Still your choice. He met my eyes in the mirror. Always your choice, but tonight, we show them unity, strength. We show them that the scapegoat has found her crown. And if I choose not to seal it, after, then I wait longer. He smiled. I wait forever, if I must. We descended together. The throne room was vast, carved from the mountain itself, lit by torches that burned without smoke. At its center, the pack waited, surrounded by FENRIR's silent servants, by the weight of ancient stone and older magic. Varric stood in the center, defiant, Kale beside him, less certain, the others gammas, a few betas clustered together, smelling of fear and desperation. State your claim, FENRIR commanded. He sat on the ancient throne, and I sat on the smaller one beside it, the consort's seat, never before occupied. Why do you violate my territory? Why do you demand what is mine? She's not yours, Varric repeated, but his voice was weaker here, in this place of power. She's Iron Fang, born there, raised there, sworn. Sworn to what? I asked, my voice carried, echoing. To be beaten? To be blamed? To be given to Magnus because you couldn't admit the hunt failed from your own incompetence? Silence, scapegoat! Varric lunged forward. FENRIR's servants caught him, held him. You don't speak in council. You don't have voice. I have voice here. I stood. The circlet was heavy, grounding. I have power here. You took everything from me, my mother, my safety, my belief that I deserved to exist. But you couldn't take my choice. I chose the river. I chose survival. I chose him. Mate bonds can be broken, Varric screamed. They're not sealed. I can smell it. It's open. It's waiting. Because I am waiting. FENRIR's voice cut through the chaos. Because I will never force what should be given freely. Because she is worth any weight, any want, any... He paused, controlled his temper with visible effort. Your claim is denied, Alpha of the Iron Fang. Your trespass is noted. Your crimes, he looked at me. Your crimes against my consort are hers to judge. Silence. Varric stared at me, really looked at me. Perhaps for the first time since my mother's death, saw the silk, the gold, the strength in my stance. Saw the scars on my back, visible in the gown's low cut, and the lack of shame in my bearing. You, he whispered, you did this. You planned this, seduced the monster, turned him against your own. I survived you, I said. That's all. That's everything. And now, I choose what happens next. I descended from the throne, walked to him, slowly, letting him see me, letting him fear me. Perhaps for the first time. You have two choices, I said. Two judgments I can offer. The first, execution. FENRIR will shift. He will end you, quickly or slowly, as I decide. And your pack will be scattered to the winds. Your name will be forgotten. Your line ended. Varric's face went gray. The second, banishment. You will leave this territory. You will never cross the Blackwater again. You will never speak my name. Never claim my blood. Never approach anyone under FENRIR's protection. You will live, but as nothing. No pack, no power, no purpose but survival. I leaned close. Close enough to smell his fear sweat, to see the pulse hammering in his throat. Choose, I whispered, or I choose for you. For a moment, I thought he might fight. Then his shoulders slumped. Banishment, he croaked. Please, banishment. I stepped back, looked at FENRIR. Banish them. All of them. Let them carry word to the other packs. What happens to those who cross the ancient territory? What happens to those who break the weak? FENRIR rose. You heard my consort. Go, cross the river again if you dare, or find another path. But if you ever return... He shifted. Not the full lichen form. Something between the 7 feet of muscle and fur and royalty. Claws extended, eyes burning suns. I will not be merciful. I will not offer choice. I will simply end you. They ran. All of them. Even Varric. Scrambling from the throne room like whipped curs, leaving behind their pride, their power. Their claim on me. I watched them go, felt the last chain of the Iron Fang Pack snap, fall away, dissolve into the ancient stone beneath my feet. And then I turned to FENRIR, to my king, to the mate I had chosen. Finally, fully, without reservation. "Seal it," I said. He went still. "Yvaine, the bond, seal it. I want you. I want this. I want us. And I'm done waiting. Done being afraid. Done letting their ghosts keep me from what I want." "You're sure?" His voice was rough, desperate, hopeful. "If we do this, there's no undoing. No going back. You'll be mine, and I'll be yours. And the world will know. Let them know." I reached for him, pulled him down to me, pressed my forehead to his. "Let them all know. Yvaine of the Iron Fang Pack is dead. Long live Yvaine, consort of the Lycan King, mate of FENRIR, queen of the ancient territory." He kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. Wasn't the restrained touch of a king afraid of his own power. It was claiming, finally, mutually, the bond snapping closed around us like a lock finding its key, like a river finding its sea. I felt him, all of him, centuries of loneliness and duty and waiting, flow into me. Felt myself, all my broken pieces, my scarred resilience, my newfound strength, flow into him. We were separate, still, individual, but connected, linked in ways that went beyond body, beyond mind, into something soul deep. When we broke apart, gasping, the throne room had changed. The torches burned gold now, not red. The stone seemed warmer, more alive, and on my hand, where his had held it, a mark appeared, not the forced bite of Magnus's claiming, but a spiral of gold and black, ancient and new, chosen. "My queen," FENRIR breathed. "My king," I answered. And in the garden outside, where the birds had returned to singing, a single flower bloomed silver petals, gold center, the same I'd worn in my hair, the first of many. I knew, the first sign of spring. In a territory that had slept too long. That was a year ago. I stand now, on the terrace, where I first touched FENRIR freely, where I first chose my own want over my fear. The Blackwater River glitters in the distance, no longer a barrier, but a border, a definition. This side, life, choice, love. That side, the past, survived, transcended. The Iron Fang Pack is scattered. Varric died in winter. I heard Froze trying to cross a territory that wouldn't have him. Magnus followed, his wounds infected, his power finally failing. The others found new packs, to new alphas, or became lone wolves. Their stories continue, but they're no longer mine. Mine is here, in Stonehaven, which wakes a little more each day. In the court that gathers slowly, carefully, those who can bear the Lycan King's presence and the Queen's scarred strength. In the pups who come to learn, to heal, to find sanctuary from packs that don't deserve them. Mine is in FENRIR, who sleeps beside me now without guarding the door, who trusts my strength as I trust his gentleness, who waits for nothing anymore, because everything he wanted is finally his, is ours. The bond hums between us, constant, content, not a chain, but a connection, a choice, made daily, hourly, with every breath. I am Yvaine, once scapegoat, once broken, once dead in a river that carried me to salvation. I am consort of the Lycan King. I am queen of the ancient territory. I am wanted. I am worthy. I am home. And if you're out there, listening, if you're in your own cellar, your own circle, your own river's edge, know this. The monsters in the stories aren't always monsters. Sometimes they're kings, Sometimes they're saviors, and sometimes the most terrifying thing in the dark is just waiting to love you, if you'll let it. Run, if you must. Fight, if you can. Choose the river. Choose the unknown. Choose yourself over their version of you. You might just find your crown on the other side.